Okay, with that, let us see if there are questions. I think there are quite a number. Marcus, will you?
Yes, there are many questions coming in, and I could try to summarize some of them. One that's sort of repeated in various ways several times here is about bliss and emptiness and the connection there, and just wondering about, how can a mere negation be blissful, and what's that concept about the non-duality of bliss and emptiness about?
So that's a good question. So that actually is where the creative tension between the compassion, emptiness, and Buddha nature really gets fleshed out in at least in the Tsongkhapa's view, because in Vajrayana tradition, particularly the highest yoga tantra, there is this understanding that the natural tone of consciousness, especially when it's brought at the subtle level, is blissful. And that bliss is not in a sensational a sense of a sensation. So that bliss is sort of a consequence of having quietened all the layers of conceptual elaborations. So in fact, there is a beautiful passage in Sarjan Losai Gyaltso's hymn to Vajrayogini, which is Vajrayogini is part of my practice, and Vajrayogini in the Gelug tradition came from the Sakya tradition, and Sarjan Losai Gyaltso was a great Sakya master. And there's a poem where he says that, so my mind, the youth, was so exhausted by the conceptual elaboration, seeks respite and peace in the forest of still forest of inexpressible reality. So there is this idea that when the conceptual elaborations and thoughts and layers of thoughts are quietened, then the bliss arises. There is a kind of now in the Gelug tradition, the union of bliss and emptiness is really takes place at a subtle level of consciousness, when the grosser levels of thoughts have been quietened. And at that point, the mind's essential nature is luminous, and then mind is naturally empty of inherent existence. And then the realization of emptiness is the realization of mind's own nature. And that is experientially felt. So that's why there is no subject-object duality. So non-dual is in that sense.
I suppose one could also say that sometimes you approach bliss through emptiness, as you explained, that a bodhisattva would have the experience of emptiness, which leads to immense bliss. And that's what the first stage is called, pramudita, great joy. Sure. And perhaps there are others who would approach emptiness through bliss, particularly using the tantric part of method.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, Tsongkhapa also says that at an advanced level of tantric practice, Vajrayana practice, especially when bliss is brought in, then the discursive approach that is so characteristic of analytic method needs to be, stopped.